So if you're building the kind of application where you're performing multiple reads to your database, and it's important for those reads to be responded to very quickly, this is a tool or this is software that can help you achieve that very efficiently. Redis or Valky. Valky is just a fork of Redis version 17. So Redis is a data store which saves data in memory. So it doesn't save data to the disk, it saves data to the RAM of the server. This makes it very accessible because the CPU finds it easier and faster to retrieve data that is stored in the RAM than data that is stored in the disk. There are various processes of parsing and logical operations that go into retrieving data from the disk. But retrieving data from the memory is pretty fast. So saving your data in memory is what Redis helps you to do. Okay. So if you have your application, this is your app, it's making you a lot of money, and you have your database. Say you have Postgres, right? Postgres, your application wants to make a request to Postgres, right? So it makes that request to Postgres, selects, okay? So when your app makes this request, this read request, Postgres gets that data, all the data from the user table, and returns it to your application, okay? Now, imagine if you have to perform this request multiple times. So every time you perform that request, that Postgres has to retrieve that information again and get it back to you. What if you can have a place where you can save the result of this request in memory so that it's very accessible from your application? So when you make this request, the result is saved in Redis and sent to your application. So every time this application wants to make this request again, it first checks if the result of this request is already within your Redis data store, which is your cache. And if it is there, it returns it. And that could drastically reduce the speed that's used to retrieve this application. Now, how does Redis work? So Redis, the Redis server, saves the data, multiple data types. Redis has the ability to support multiple data types, including strings, lists, sets, and saves them within the memory of the Redis server. And the application can easily retrieve this memory. Redis actually also saves the operations performed on this Redis cluster to a storage. Now, this storage is not saving the data, it's saving the operations. So if anything happens to this server, if the server has an outage, you can easily replay those data so that because if it's in memory and the server goes down, all the data there is lost. It's not persisted, right? So you need a way to retrieve that data if something happens. And that's why Redis saves the operations to a storage, either in the form of a Redis database, right, which is a snapshot of Redis, or it saves it as an append-only file, which just writes every operation that is performed, it appends it to this file. Every operation that is performed, it appends it to this file. And some people use a combination of these two to have more yeah, reliability of the data in Redis. All right. So Redis saves data in the form of hashes. So it has a hash table, right? And this is how it's able to be performant. So it already saves your data in key value stores, right? So you have keys and the values. Okay. So this key value store is saved in Redis. So but Redis also maintains a hash table, right? Where it takes the key and then main, maintains a hash of the location in the Redis database where the key value store for this key is saved, right? So this makes it such that when Redis wants to retrieve this key, instead of passing through the entire Redis database, it looks at the hash table and gets the specific location where it can find the key value store for what you've requested, and that maintains the time complexity of one, making it very fast to retrieve data from Redis. I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I can treat it. Um, let's talk a bit about reliability and high availability within Redis. Okay. So if you're deploying a Redis cluster in production, right? If you're deploying it in dev, you can just set up a simple Redis server or Redis database and you're good to go. But if you're deploying it in production, you have to set it up with high availability in mind. Okay. So your Redis cluster will usually have a leader and some followers, right? And the data that is the write operations and the read operations will be coming to the leader and replicated to the followers. Okay. So to ensure that there is some high availability of this leader, Redis also works with Sentinel that can help to handle failover. In case this leader goes down, it can perform some election and select a new leader, thereby maintaining high availability in your Redis cluster. Okay. So I hope you'll be trying out Redis in your application and let me know how that improves the performance. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.